Do you have a water leak and can't find where it's coming from? Are you dealing with water or mold damage in your home or business? Then call Water Cleanup of Florida at 954-579-0356 for immediate assistance. With over 60 years of combined experience, Michael, Robert, and their team is prepared to handle all types of leak detection issues 24 hours a day, 365 days a year. After the leak has been located and repaired, Water Cleanup of Florida will then clean, dry, and fully restore the damaged areas. Water Cleanup of Florida is fully licensed, insured, and certified to provide the one-stop shopping that busy homeowners and business owners require. There is no need to bring in other contractors. They will handle the entire project from start to finish. Service areas include Miami, Broward, and Palm Beach counties. Call Michael anytime on his personal cell phone at 954-579-0356. That's 954-579-0356. Or visit their website at wcufl.com. Water Cleanup of Florida. If you have the schmutz, they have the guts.
Welcome to 3 Yards Per Carry, a podcast covering the Miami Dolphins and the NFL. Now, here's your hosts, Chris, Alf, and Simon.
And we're on, and welcome to another edition of 3 Yards Per Carry. This is not a winning edition. It's been a while, right? This is not 3 weeks of this. Hopefully, it changes very soon. Okay, but we do have Simon Clancy here. We have Chris Kaufman here. We have them together. We don't have them like we had last week, which I know you guys don't like. But as this show is always brought to you by Manscaped, 5RSN. Use promo code 5RSN. Get 20% off your entire order. And of course, Better Edge. Go to Better Edge /5, the number 5 reasons, and you can get $25 as a sign-up bonus. And of course, Prize Picks. Use promo code 5, FIVE. And if you use that promo code, you deposit $100, they give you $100, and it's a one-time easy rollover. Okay? One-time easy rollover, which means you bet it through, you get $100. In other words, they're giving you $100. It's free. Take it. Promo code 5, FIVE. All right, Simon. I think they call these losing streaks. This one was kind of interesting in particular, and I didn't take it as it wasn't as bad. Man, 4-2 would have been really, really nice, but evidently, and we're going to talk about this in the second half of the show. In the second half of the show, we're going to talk about some players, with a little bit more specificity, okay, and going forward. Because I think we could form opinions maybe on a few of these guys because the sample size is getting larger. But in the first half of the show, we're going to talk about this game. Simon, you remarked on, you had some remarks on this on Twitter and on OnlyFans. Your thoughts on this game? I'll start here. That drive in particular, and they were all legitimate penalties, people. Okay, like maybe I don't know, maybe the Liam Eichenberg hold. Maybe you could get away with that. Maybe it happens.
That was a tackle. That was the most egregious of them all.
Yeah, but the ball was away. The ball was away. So maybe a referee looks the other way and says, "Well, the ball was away," and then this guy tackles him. Maybe I'll pick up this flag. But Jesus Christ, Skylar Thompson, and I'll talk about him in the second half, and we'll talk about him in the second half. The guy had 72 yards of passing called back penalties once they crossed midfield. I never knew that was possible. But now you do know that it's possible. Your thoughts on this game overall and that drive in particular, Simon?
Yeah, that drive was frustrating because it just seemed like every time we got punched in the mouth, we'd come back and pick up a first down, or Craycraft to get to the goal line, or Tyree could pick up big yardage or whatever, and it was just disappointing to see. But I didn't think any of them weren't penalties. I mean, people were saying, "Oh, the Alec Ingold," but Ingold was blocking before the pass was even thrown, which is a penalty in and of itself. So, I saw the Eichenberg one as it happened. You could see it from the backside as he sort of rugby tackled his guy to the ground, and then Skylar obviously hits Craycraft with a really good throw. I thought Skylar played really well. Look, I have this down as a circumstance defeat. I think I was just shocked. I didn't watch it live, but I watched it as live. About 10 minutes after it finished, I started watching it. It just felt like a circumstance defeat, and you get a couple of those every season, which is just that, and I think the Bills probably had a circumstance defeat against the Dolphins in week 3 that just it's hard to overcome a load of injuries, and that's what the Dolphins had. You look at, Tua being out, Armstead being out, Nick Needham going down with injury. the nicks, the bruises were down to our third string quarterback. Then we're back to our second string quarterback, but he actually looks worse than the third string quarterback. And I kind of feel like that was the issue. I just was amazed that the Dolphins lost it. Really, I just couldn't see it. I couldn't see, like, to go in at halftime and be down when we'd absolutely dominated that first half just seemed unfeasible for it to happen. But I just thought, yeah, it was just down to situations that we almost couldn't control. I thought the defense was absolutely outstanding. All these people bitching and moaning about Josh Boyer and, oh, we're not doing this and we're not doing that. Well, you can see what happens when you have a healthy Xavier Howard, because it makes such an important difference to how that defense works. I thought loads of guys on that defense played really well. Bethel, Keon Crossan played well. Jalen Phillips had a good game. Christian Wilkins played really well. And Landon Roberts was excellent. We just got killed on offense. The offensive line was really poor. Didn't help. I didn't think Teddy played particularly well when he came in. I've seen a couple of people sort of defending him, and he was okay in spurts. But I thought, and I'm going to watch back the All-22, but I think he had some ugly plays. He took some ugly sacks. He's just a little bit slow processing in the pocket. I hated the fake punt call. I thought it was a terrible time to do it. It was a terrible situation to do it in a tight game. Morstead had been punting well. Just get rid of it and just play defense. Defense was playing outstanding. But yeah, to me, a circumstance defeat. And it's just a massive. That just places a lot of emphasis now on Sunday, because that's an absolutely massive game. Because as much as I probably wasn't expecting the Dolphins to be 3-3 at this point in terms of predictions before the season started, I certainly wasn't expecting the Jets to be 4-2 and the Patriots now to be 3-3, and the Patriots playing pretty well. They've really got something going with that run game on offense. Defense is playing well, so it's a massive game for the Dolphins on Sunday.
Yeah, as far as you called it on the defense. The defense was spectacular. There was two plays. Okay, the catch and run by Jefferson, and then the run by Dalvin Cook, which was a blown run fit by Javon Holland. That was supposed to be a perfectly blocked play that goes for 6 to 7 yards because Javon Holland fits and gets his tackle on Dalvin Cook. He hit air. Dalvin Cook hit the end zone on a perfectly blocked play. But how many 3-and-outs was this? Because I'm counting them. This is ridiculous.
11 or something, wasn't it?
It's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 3-and-outs by the Dolphin defense. I think that's good defense. Chris, your thoughts on this game?
This is the third week in a row that the guy that played the quarterback that played the majority of the snaps on offense was, or basically played the game, was not the guy that was game planned during the week. I think that makes a difference. I think when you see Skylar Thompson get thrust into action last week and struggle, and he clearly did, but then this week, full week of practice, he's the guy. He's the game plan is being built around him. Honestly, he was playing better. He was playing a lot better football in the beginning stages of the game, and I thought that was interesting, and it was something to kind of keep an eye on, or keep in mind, I guess, when you're trying to look at all this, and the fact that the Dolphins started out 3-0 with some defeats against some good teams, and now they're 0-3 in the last 3 weeks. I think that it's important, and it's a team game. It's not just about one side of the ball, but like one side of the ball can affect both sides of the ball, and so I think when we've seen that 3 consecutive games here, and so I think a lot of people in that building will be breathing a sigh of relief when they get the starting quarterback back that they intended to play, that they built this offense around. And so it's not about excuses. It's more of opportunity, because in those first 3 games, it's not just that they won the games; it's that the offense was performing well. The offense was one of the top offenses in the NFL during that stretch, and now it is clearly not. And I think that's it's contributing. When you see this defense in this game, this is one of those classic ones where, the final score says what it says, but you watch how the game played out, and it's like, what happened in this game is that the defense was stout and forcing a lot of 3-and-outs from the Minnesota Vikings offense, and the other side of the ball, the Miami's offense just couldn't get anything done during all that time period, and that's playing complementary football, and it wasn't there. And so I think that this was shaping up to be a very nice defensive performance, I think. But there's just one half that was kind of absent. And I think that's unfortunate. More and more, this is reminding me, I brought this up before, is how much does this really remind you of San Francisco with Jimmy Garoppolo as quarterback? I don't think anybody is ready to put Jimmy Garoppolo in the Hall of Fame or anything, but when they play with Jimmy Garoppolo, they basically, they win. I think it's, what is it? He's 33-16 as the starter there.
Mm-hmm.
When they don't play with Jimmy Garoppolo, they do not win.
They actually lose a lot. Kind of like
they lose quite a bit. And I think it's something like 9. I want to say it's something like 9-29 in San Francisco over the years since Jimmy Garoppolo came. Over the years that Jimmy has been playing in San Francisco. And it's something to think about, just because, I know that everybody hates the whole QB wins thing, but when one quarterback wins on a team and then none of the other quarterbacks that play on the same team can win, I think that it's something to pay attention to. There's something to be said for both the aspect of it that's complementary football, which affects both sides of the field. And then there's something to be said about as we've seen the last 3 weeks, the guy who played the game wasn't the guy who was game planned, And so I think that's taking its toll. I can't wait to get, the starter back and see if they can get control of the season again, because it's kind of out of control. There's a lot of injuries and going on at the quarterback position in particular, and we'll see. But this was definitely an offensive loss to me. As Simon alluded to, I think Josh Boyer and his defense performed admirably here, and they can't do it all by themselves.
Yeah, I completely agree. Simon, the last 2 years before the season, I'm pretty sure we've done this podcast. In fact, if I look for it, we probably did this podcast about, okay, we kind of know Tua's going to miss 2 games. So what are we going to do to try to remedy those 2 games, to try to take at least one of those 2 games and possibly win both of those games when Tua eventually has to miss 2 games? Well, he missed 2 games already this year. And of course, 0-2. Last year, the answer seemed to be Jacoby Brissett and trying to run the ball, and that was a disaster. This year, the answer was go get a starter from last year, Teddy Bridgewater, and have that be the answer. Do you just give it a pass, or did they just fail at that mission once again this year?
I think the bigger question has got to be whether or not it's sustainable that your starting quarterback continues to miss multiple games every year. That, to me, is a far bigger issue than whether or not, if you're game planning for how we cope when he can't play because he always gets injured, that to me is a massive issue. And it's sort of taking your eye off the ball a little bit. And as well as Skylar Thompson played and he developed. And if he continues to do what he did yesterday and did in training camp, then I suspect he'll be the number 2 moving forwards. But it's a concern when we're literally having this conversation about the fact that, okay, we admit our quarterback is never going to stay healthy. So what are we going to do to manifest it during the time when he's off? That's a bit of a problem for me.
Yeah, that's a good point. Your thoughts on that, Chris?
Well, I think the main thing is, you know, I want to see. We have to see more. We have to see more, and this has nothing to do with Tua. This has everything to do with the coaching and the offense, and just we're 6 games into the season. We're not just 6 games into a season. Into a 6 game. We're 6 games into a new coaching regime, right? I mean, that's early, and we really have to see more here because it's like I said, it's not even just that the starting quarterback was out for the better part of the last 3 games. It's that who ended up playing in the game kept being not the guy that the game plan was centered around, and whether even go back to the Cincinnati game when Teddy Bridgewater took the majority of the snaps in that game, and he was not supposed to be the guy that week. The very following week, Teddy Bridgewater was supposed to be the guy, and then some rogue spotter decided that he's not going to be the guy, and so Skylar Thompson was thrust into it. And then the following week, Skylar Thompson was supposed to be the guy. That is presumably on purpose, right? Like that, when Mike McDaniel has this policy about practicing and playing, presumably there's a reason, right? And I think that we started to see the reason for that when Skylar Thompson, the planned starter, went out there and he was playing well, as opposed to the previous week when he was not. And then Teddy Bridgewater gets out there, and he was not supposed to play. He didn't practice this week, really, and then they did not do well. Not until the fourth quarter, not until everything had really settled in and the defense had started to become predictable. I think that was when the offense started to loosen up a little bit. And but then Jalen Waddle's turnover was a killer, and so on and so forth. But I think that mainly, yeah, there's an issue when your starting quarterback keeps getting taken out of the game. But really, I hate to say it's just bad luck, but at some point, when you start a backup quarterback that's been practicing the entire week and like, okay, he's going to start this week, you can't have that guy get injured every single game too. And that's what we've had. Teddy Bridgewater gets injured. Well, quote unquote,
He was suspended
against the Jets.
And Teddy was suspended. It was a different case.
Well, right, but he gets quote unquote injured against the Jets, and then the following week, Skylar Thompson's our starter, and he gets injured, as well. You just can't have That's 4 straight games. If you count the Buffalo game where Tua did get shaken up and came back in the game. I don't know. That maybe that's bad luck. Maybe that's the offensive line still being terrible. I don't know. But that can't keep happening, and that's a real issue to me.
Yeah, Teddy today. Not today. It was the availability after the game. Teddy, he talked about the bad luck, and they asked him about his one snap game against the Jets, and he refused to say anything about it. He said he wanted to keep it private, obviously because he didn't want to get fined. But he says he chalked it up to bad luck as well. In my opinion, I don't know if you agree with this, Simon. Turns out he doesn't have a fracture, meaning Skylar Thompson in his finger. Obviously, he went to the locker room. I'm pretty sure that right away, as soon as there's blood gushing out of a finger, and they do an X-ray and they say, okay, it's not broken. You want to tape it up and see if you could go back into the game. Did you get the sense that they said, you know what, I'm not feeling it, and let's try to get Teddy in there to see if this takes off a little bit? Do you think he was more like quasi benched, although I thought he was playing fine, rather than held out?
No, absolutely not. I just felt to me as though and it seemed to be that he was indicating to Tua that he couldn't grip with his thumb. The thumb just couldn't hold the back of the ball. I mean, I couldn't envisage or even fathom a scenario where they looked at what he'd done in the first quarter and a half of that game and thought, oh no, we'll take him out and put Teddy in, because he was playing really well. He was making yards with his feet, he was making smart decisions, he was making big throws down the field, he was making touch throws. He was being safe generally with the ball. I thought he was excellent, and I thought he gave the Dolphins a better chance to win than Teddy Bridgewater did. And but in part because he's able to use his feet so well to escape the pocket, because he's very mobile when that very porous offensive line started to break down. So no, I just didn't think he was able to grip the ball properly. So I think that's why Bridgewater came in.
Yeah, I would say this. I would add this about Teddy Bridgewater, though. I mean, he looks almost scary thin to me out there. I don't know how you feel about it, and maybe I'm guilty of falling into something perception wise, but the fact that he can't stay healthy on the field, is interesting to me because at what point can you just say that this guy can't really be the primary backup? If you can't, because we have enough problems keeping the starter healthy, and we've talked about that since before he was even drafted, right? You can't have your backup be so slight of frame and taking shots and getting hurt all the time too. And that's a significant issue.
Yeah, I tend to agree. He does look thinner than before. I saw some. I watched some last year with Denver. I also think he's playing a little bit more free. This system seems to suit him, but I agree with you. Like his frame is different. Like he's obviously different. All right, to finish up this segment before we go to a word on liquid death, Simon, do you think that we talked about it? We talked about it in the preview show last week. Vikings, bad pass defense, worse run defense, but the only thing that they seemed to do is that they were opportunistic, and that's why they were 4-1, now 5-1, for pretty much the same reason, by the way. It seemed to bear out, like 458 yards of offense, 400 of it through the air. Do you feel that the Dolphins had the right game plan, and you could just chalk up this whole thing to turnovers and penalties, and that's the game?
Yeah,
But
I mean, like as a circumstance, the fact that the Dolphins had 3 points, it was not reflective of the way that they performed, the way they'd moved the ball from between the 20s, really. Obviously, the turnovers were killers. The Waddle turnover was a killer. But there was no real point until the Adam Thielen touchdown, where I thought Miami was going to lose the game, even with Teddy playing. So it was just sort of unfathomable to me, really, that we got to that point where, we were down and pretty much out. It was such a strange game because I felt generally we had complete control. I mean, I thought Xavier Howard was absolutely outstanding yesterday, the way he locked down Justin Jefferson. And it just gives you the ability to play the scheme that you want to play. I thought, he was just, I'm literally just watching the All-22 now as we're talking, just like picking out some clips and just thinking, God, he's good. Because Jefferson's outstanding. But yeah, I just think it was just one of those things. I just, I sit here now and I still think I just don't know how we lost, really, because, that Dalvin Cook was really held. Eric Kendricks didn't have a massive game. Even though people like Daniil Hunter and Harrison Smith obviously had the forced fumble, but Smith was quiet. Cam Dantzler's had a big season and was pretty quiet. The receivers, Tyreek had 171 yards receiving. I think Jalen had 136. So yeah, we were able to move the ball just pretty well. You just got to chalk it down to one of those things, I think.
Yeah, they were going to win the game. That pass gets completed to Jalen Waddle. And I'm thinking to myself, now they're converting 3rd and 18s. Yeah, this thing is ending up in the end zone, and the Dolphins are ending up 4-2. Of course, he fumbled, and that was pretty much the game because you could see from then on, man, they get a field goal. This might be too much to overcome, and it was. Chris, I guess we could end here. Your thoughts on this game plan? Anything to nitpick on, or was it right? Like, they really tried to push the ball down the field. Like, that was the game plan.
Yeah, I think there's that, but I think it's good to remember also. I mean, there were mistakes from the coaching standpoint, and especially in the realm of protections, and whether there was extra help, for this player. That I know some people that were just absolutely maddened about the protections in the game. We have to remember that Mike McDaniel is also a first-time coach, right? And he's still learning as well. He's been presented with a challenging stretch of season where not only you have other guys coming out of the game as well, like Teron Armstead. That's a big deal, but it's certainly a challenge when you go into the Cincinnati game already on a short week, and you lose your starting quarterback, and now you're playing with your backup. Then the following week you lose your starting quarterback on the first play of the game, and now you're going with the backup who's a 7th-round rookie. In the following week, okay, well, we didn't get this guy practicing enough, so we're going to go with the guy that we've had practicing and taking the reps all week. And then he comes out of the game after a little. Like, these are tough circumstances to deal with for any coach. He is a rookie coach on top of that. So I think that this is something that, if he establishes the system overall, as in a general way, and you get some of the same players coming back year after year in the system, you're going to be a little bit more proofed against some of these bad circumstances, I think, or you're going to be able to handle them a little bit better. I don't think Miami was in position to handle this, and I think part of it is you're going to have to look at the coaching and say, this is a new staff, this is a new system, and this is a new regime, and it might not be this way next year as opposed to this year. So that's it.
All right. When we come back, we're going to talk about some players specifically, but before that, a word from Liquid Death. This show is brought to you by Liquid Death. You've seen those good-looking cans at the grocery store that look like beer called Liquid Death? It's actually mountain spring water from the Alps, available in still, sparkling, and these flavors: severed lime, mango chainsaw, and my favorite, Bury It Alive. Actually, I'm drinking one of those right now. The fine people at Liquid Death were going to send me this product, but I just jumped the gun, bought a 12-pack of Bury It Alive. I wanted to try it. It has 3 grams of agave nectar. Let me tell you, it's delicious. It's no longer a secret. This is the most underrated thirst quencher in the market. Liquid Death murders your thirst, and the infinitely recyclable cans are environmentally friendly. Liquid Death also donates 10% of the profits from every can sold to help kill plastic pollution. Go get Liquid Death at your local Publix, the Fresh Market, or Whole Foods Market, or find a Liquid Death retailer near you with their store locator tool at liquiddeath.com/3. That's our dedicated website. That's liquiddeath.com/3, spelled out THREE. Follow Liquid Death on social media on Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, and Twitter. Use the hashtag murder your thirst and hashtag death to plastic. Liquid Death. And we're back. And as promised, we're going to talk about some players here. And we'll start here. Simon Caterco was inactive for the game with an oblique injury. So in comes Noah Benogany pressed into action. In my opinion, this is the best Noah Benogany has looked in a Dolphin uniform. Does this showing make you a little bit more optimistic going forward?
I mean, he just needs reps, really. I mean, I think the first play, the pass interference was probably the worst he's ever looked. So, but actually, I think he played those two balls to Thielen down the field pretty well, and he's going to have to play. I said it on OnlyFins. I have no information on this, but I wouldn't be shocked if we didn't see Byron Jones at all this season, quite frankly. I don't think he feels any closer to getting back on the field than he was 4 weeks ago. And I think that's coming through, the sentiment coming through with coach. McDaniel at this point. You're getting big performances from Keon Cross and Kader Coe, who obviously didn't play yesterday, but Nick Needham was playing very well before the Achilles tear. Justin Bethel has played well um, in spot performances. So, but they're going to need bodies. They're going to need players to step up, and I don't know who it is. I don't know where that's coming from. I think it would not surprise me if we added a player. A waiver wire player, or a street free agent veteran. I talked about Malcolm Butler yesterday because obviously Josh Boyer knows him. I don't know his injury status. I know he was released with an injury designation. But, you look at, do you really want to put Tino Ellis, kick him up from the practice squad? I mean, is Tino Ellis what Miami need on that back end? To me, it's not. But it's getting towards situation critical on the back end because we are an Xavier Howard injury away from Keon Crossen and Kader Coe starting games at corner, and that's not what you need. I think it's the Kalen Barnes, obviously the kid from Baylor being the other one, but again, he's so raw that
he's for next year. He's a still he's a guy that you just put on the back burner, and like he's a project for next year. Like maybe he's Trill Williams 2 years ago. That's who Kellen Barnes is, I think. Nick Needham going down is a blow, but you think, okay, we could get by with Kohu since we found Kader Kohu out of essentially nowhere, and he's now a contributor and has played well all season. So you think, okay, we could get by on that, but now they need a boundary corner. It's either going to be Noah Benogany or they're going to have to go in the trade market or the waiver wire. Do you like what do you? I'm going to throw a couple of names at you, and then I'm going to get Chris in on this. Your thoughts on AJ Bouye, and what about a trade for the very unhappy William Jackson of the almost at the Commodores? It's the Commanders. The Commodores was an R&B band from the 70s. But yeah, of the Commanders. Your thoughts on those two guys?
I mean, it's interesting, isn't it, with guys like Boye or Trey Waynes or all these Malcolm Butlers, and they're not playing for a reason. It kind of feels like, their careers are kind of coming to an end, and it's no longer 2016, 2017 for AJ Boye, but at this point, in terms of making a trade for William Jackson, yeah, but I mean, what are you going to have to give up, and then you're going to find yourself in a situation where, Byron Jones's contract is difficult to get out of, in terms of the money. So, do you want Howard, William Jackson, and Byron Jones on your roster? Do you know what I mean? It's just a really difficult one. I don't know. I suspect what they'll do is they'll end up picking up a street free agent guy rather than trading for somebody like Jackson. Good player. I like William Jackson. Good player, but yeah, I'm not sold that a trade for him is what's going to happen. I don't know what you think, Chris, but to me that just I just don't. Unless they think Byron Jones is out for the year and they can get out from underneath his contract, because William Jackson isn't going to come cheap. So,
yeah. Chris, first on Noah Benogany, I came away with a little bit more optimism after watching that. But your thoughts on their situation right now? First of all, do you agree with me that Kader Kohu kind of steps into that Nick Needham role, and you feel okay about it? Now you have no depth now, like that's gone. Like your depth has been tested and has been depleted at this point. But what are you doing in the secondary? Are you going out there in the trade market? Is there anybody you like as a street free agent? But first, your thoughts on Noah Benogany.
I'm not buying it as far as Noah Igbenogany is concerned. In the game, I thought that he had really an atrocious defensive pass interference.
Horrendous, wasn't it?
Absolutely horrendous. Totally unnecessary. I mean, it was how many years has it been that he's been in the league, and it's still. I know I realize pass interference happens, so I don't want to go on it too much. But there was that, and then he had two good plays. where things, but things kind of fell his way on the plays, and credit to him for doing what he did. But certainly you're going to have to see a lot more of that, and before you start to be convinced that he didn't just get lucky with two good plays and then also have the trademark bad play. So I don't, and I think he only played something like 17 snaps or something like that out there. So it's definitely jury's still out. There's no way I'm going to take that and say, okay, he's, we're starting to be okay there. I think the thing to worry about with Nick Needham is, I know we want to talk about Cater Coho, but Cater Coho is, he's, unless I'm very mistaken, he's a slot player. And Nick Needham this year, with Byron Jones having been out, has not been a slot player. He's not. He's been, I think, 200 snaps on a wide corner and maybe 50 snaps in the slot, something like that. Nick Needham or Cater Coho is the exact opposite. So it's not a matter of Cater Coho stepping in, because Cater Coho has already been playing. Cater Coho has got already 200 plus snaps this year. So you lose Nick Needham, you lose a lot of snaps, and now you're wondering how you need to replace that. And because it's not Cater Coho, he's already been out there, like I said. So it's that. This is going to be an acquisition. This has to be an acquisition. This has to be a signing. This has to be a trade. This has to be somebody. They were already stretched thin as it was with the delay on Byron Jones coming back onto the field. I've mentioned this before on a different podcast. When you start to go with a player and it's week after week after week, and it's like, well, when is he going to come back? When is he going to be? The longer you go, there's a certain point in time where the string breaks. And you're just like, you know what? He's shut down for the year. Period. We're there with Byron Jones. We're getting very close to that with Byron Jones, in my opinion. And so I've shared Simon's view that we're probably not going to see him at all this year. And they were stretched because of that delay. Now that they have Nick Needham out for the rest of the year, it's not stretched, it broke. So yeah, something is going to happen. They're going to trade for somebody. They're going to sign somebody. It's going to be somebody significant. I don't know exactly who it is, but it's going to be somebody. Some names that we've heard names tossed around before, but I like Janoris Jenkins and so on and so forth. But it's going to be somebody.
Yeah, I think that, and I would say on the outside, it's going to have to be another guy on the outside. I completely agree with you. That's where Nick Needham was playing. But yeah, if Byron for some reason can get back, and I'm told that it's a baseline test he has to pass that he cannot and has not passed to even begin practicing, okay, which suggests that he is not back from his Achilles surgery. So I think that the drop dead date is week 8. So we're at 2 weeks away. He doesn't start practicing, I think it's done. I think he's done for the year if he doesn't begin practicing, because it's a 21-day window. I don't think they're going to explore it past these next 2 weeks. It's interesting that they're ruling him out already early this week. He is there at the facility. So he's not, he hasn't disappeared. He's at the facility working. But so this is legitimate. This is not him doing some type of, half-assed holdout, okay? Because, he actually, deferred some money. This is actually something that's happening. Like, he is not ready to return. But I tend to agree. He doesn't return to practice in the next 2 weeks, it's done. It's out for the year, because that's the mid-season point. I've never seen it happen before, where a guy is held out for that long, and then he comes back after week 8 with then the 21-day window. Like, who the hell does that? I've never seen it done before, where a guy just comes back, hey, I'm here, I'm ready to play the last 4 games of the season. Like, I don't remember that happening ever. But yeah, I completely agree. They got to get out on that market for somebody.
We'll say this next year, though. They can get rid of him. I mean, that contract's not too it's not too bad as far as getting rid of him. They'd be in the green as far as getting rid of him and saving money, saving positive, dollars. Um, so yeah, I think Byron Jones is on his way out clearly. But yeah, he's that's it's unfortunate, but that's what we're faced with.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, moving on to other players. I don't think we're going to spend too much time on this, but yeah, Jalen Waddle had a rough one, and his fumble probably contributed to losing the game. But like I said before, I don't mind losing with my best players. He's an absolutely fabulous player, and he's having a monster year. But it's something to be said, and I think we're going to give a little flowers here because I don't think we've done enough of this so far this season. In a season where this guy is, he's putting up some gaudy record-setting numbers, okay? But we have a wide receiver who's on pace for over 1,400 yards and 9 touchdowns, and he's being overlooked by the guy that's on pace for 2,000 yards, okay, and 140 catches in Tyreek Hill. Simon, these two guys, Jalen Waddle, Tyreek Hill. Tyreek Hill is as good an acquisition as I can remember this team ever having, and Jalen Waddle is, after having a rough one, he is as advertised. He's as good as you can be. This is the best wide receiver duo in the NFL. You got to believe now. No?
Yeah, I'd imagine I mean, they're outstanding. It's been interesting, their targets, depth, yards run, and general numbers are down a little bit over the last couple of weeks, understandably so. But Hill just keeps turning up. But yeah, every time he catches the ball, you just think he's potentially going to break one. And Waddle is such a great compliment. And the fumble aside, he's been phenomenal. You get a few drops with Jalen that you don't get with Hill, but he's been so much better than I thought he'd be. I thought he'd be a lot more, take a lot more time to come to the party, as it were. But I think his route running is excellent. They both block. And they've just got blazing speed. Every time you get the ball in their hands, they're looking to take it to the house. They're both phenomenal players.
Yeah, Chris, I had a tweet before the season talking about the 1984 season where Mark Duper and Mark Clayton both had 1,300 yards receiving, and I asked, "Is Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle capable of this?" Nobody thought that they were capable of it. Well, it looks like they are. Your thoughts on this duo? This is the best duo in the NFL, do you think? Or is there one better that you could come up with off the top of your head? And, has this been as great an acquisition as I think it is? I think it's one of the best things they've done in ages on this team. Like, I could see how this tandem could be the catalyst to a championship on this team in the next 3 years.
Well, yeah, it's certainly a championship caliber unit because of those two, and it's not that it doesn't matter who you have as a third. It's that it's because of those two, the job that whoever is playing with them has to do as the third receiver is a lot easier. But yeah, are they the best tandem in the league right now? Various fans of various other teams are gonna say that their guys are, but I think there's a legitimate reason to believe that they're the best tandem in the league right now. It does remind me of like I said before, the old Rams offense, with Isaac Bruce and Torrey Holt, and I think that we get our starting quarterback back on the field. I mean, what's kind of interesting to me about the game is that the timing of Waddle's fumble couldn't be worse, right? But it came during the portion of the game. They were moving the ball in the first quarter, and they were moving the ball in the fourth quarter. They were really moving the ball in the fourth quarter. They scored that touchdown. They were well on their way, and then Waddle had that very untimely fumble. Obviously, the last drive in the final couple minutes of the game, going down the field 88 yards and getting a touchdown. I think that people say that's garbage time. Well, yeah, until you recover an onside kick, and then it's like, oh wait, that's now it's real. So I think that it's interesting that they got going in the fourth quarter. I think it's also interesting that they were already, hit the ground running in the first quarter with Skylar Thompson at quarterback. I'm just trying to pick pieces of what they've shown and say, well, what is this going to look like in better circumstances? And I think that's interesting. They did start to get going into the fourth quarter. They were just completely blank for two quarters. The offense was just abysmal. And so, you could say, well, greatest duo, greatest wide receiver duo, and all that, but for 8 drives in the second and third quarter, they were just atrocious. The entire offense. It didn't matter who the duo was at the wide receiver. But it is interesting to me that they did start to pick it up in the fourth quarter, and so that's kind of what I would latch on to and say, okay, well, maybe we get some calmer circumstances. Starting quarterback start and finish a game, which would be something. And then we'll see what this duo really can do. But yeah, they're probably the best duo in the NFL right now. And this should be a very productive offense, as it was in the first 3 weeks of the season with those two at the wideout positions.
Yeah, and if you're gonna sense a theme here because we tried one negative and then one positive, so this obviously is gonna be a negative. I like this roster a lot, Simon, and I liked it in a lot of different areas. I think they're gonna have to remake the entire tight end room. I'm not one to start saying that somebody's a bust after a year and a half in house, but I don't. What's the redeeming value of Hunter Long? He was as bad in this game. He was actually sabotaging this offense in this game. One time he even blocked Greg Little from his kick slide and allowed a sack on it. And Greg Little looked at him like seriously, dude, like this is what you're doing? You're trying to get our quarterback killed by blocking me? He was late on a wham block on another time. First of all, why are you going to have him do any of this stuff? He might be as bad a blocker as Mike Gesicki is, by the way, and he also doesn't catch the ball, so that's 2 strikes against him. Are you as out on Hunter Long as I am, and are you as ready as I am to remake the entire tight end room next season?
Yeah, I mean it's not great, and none of them really suit the style of offense that we want to run because none of them can block. We thought Long could block, and actually he's not very good at it. He's just not a very good player.
Hmm.
Smythe has had his struggles this year. Gesicki, obviously, he had a good game on Sunday, but you wonder whether or not he might be used. I mean, I think they'd probably like to keep him just for his receiving skills, and then but actually, if they can get something for him, given how much they need help at corner, how much they need help on the offensive line, he kind of would take the deal. Tanner Connor, I would never throw to him again. I mean, this is back-to-back games now where he's throwing the ball and he's just flat out dropped passes that he has to be catching, and no amount of upside is going to get you away from the fact that if you're on the field and they throw to you, you have to make a play, and he hasn't made a play. So, and I don't feel like Adam Shaheen is a player. They tried to get rid of him to the Texans, and I know they were disappointed that deal fell through, even though it was for a late round pick. So, you look at something like Ross Dwelly, who was the backup to George Kittle in San Francisco. He's a free agent. You can see him coming in as a backup, but they need a big time tight end for this system to work. And whether that comes in the draft, you look at someone like Utah's Dalton Kincaid, who had a massive game on Saturday night against USC. Who can run the sort of routes that you're looking for. Has got outstanding hands as a converted receiver, can block well enough, but also has shown improvement year on year in terms of his ability to block. Obviously, Michael Mayer at Notre Dame. So there's the kids at Georgia, 2 big kids at Georgia, Gilbert and the other massive human being whose name escapes me at the moment. But so there are tight ends in the draft. Obviously, there's a couple of Dalton Schultz at Dallas as a free agent. You look at how much they've started to integrate. The Ferguson kid from Wisconsin, he had a pretty big game last night, and the touchdown catch to get the Cowboys right back in it. So Jake Ferguson. So it'll be interesting to see what happens there. But the offense is predicated on what the tight end can do, and unfortunately the tight end doesn't work. And I think that's part of the reason why the run game isn't working particularly well at the moment. But they've got to fix the offensive line as well. You go back and how often have we talked about this? an extension of the tight end. But you go back and look at Philadelphia last night, and Jordan Mailata, obviously, wasn't a high pick, but has developed into one of the best left tackles in the league. You get Landon Dickerson, who we all loved at Alabama, but I thought was amazing at center. He's gone to left guard and has been absolutely superb. Jason Kelsey, obviously. You look at the right tackle, Lane Johnson, the guy we should have drafted when we drafted Dion Jordan, still playing at an elite level. And they've been doing it for a long time. Kelsey, Johnson, especially, have been doing it for a long time.
Although, to be fair, last night when Lane Johnson left the game, oddly enough, with a concussion issue, and Jake Driscoll came in, and he's actually been all right. It was open season on Jalen Hurts.
Yeah, sure.
So I think they got to get healthy. Teron Armstead is a must on this team. And
Armstead, obviously, but we've got three linemen playing at an Pro Bowl level,
and the other two are absolutely god awful.
Yeah,
it short circuits the entire group. You agree, right?
I mean, I think Eichenberg has been abysmal.
Yes,
and I thought, to be fair to Greg Little, I thought he played well until the hand issue, and we've talked about this and how that's affected.
But he's getting progressively worse.
Yeah, he is. So Austin Jackson coming back, I would assume that Austin Jackson will be plugged in at right tackle if Armstead can go against the Steelers. But in an ideal world, if Little was playing the way he was playing earlier in the season against Baltimore, for example, you'd almost want to plug Austin Jackson in at left guard. But it's not great, and it just feels like it needs. There are pieces there. Obviously, Armstead. The same question as Tua. Can you rely on a guy that only plays a certain amount of games in a year? Connor Williams has been excellent. Rob Hunt's been excellent, but you've got to fix right tackle. You've got to fix left guard.
Chris, are you as out on Hunter Long as it seems we two are? And are you remaking the entire tight end room like I think we both want to do it? And I guess you could hit all those points and the offensive line, namely Liam Eichenberg. Like, wow. Like I'm as ready. Yeah, it might be time. It just might be time. Like, look, you're just not getting better, and you're actually sabotaging this team. Like, you're costing this team 32-yard plays that go down to the 1-yard line because you're holding, and it's an obvious hold. And maybe you could get away with it sometime, but you're tackling the guy in front of the fucking referee, dude. And then you're getting our quarterback killed. You whiff on another one, and Teddy Bridgewater gets slammed to the ground. It's every week with him. But yeah, I guess tackle the tight ends first, and I don't know, like what can we make of this Mike Gesicki performance? Like I like to say, okay, it's a lot like basketball usage. If you're giving targets to Gesicki so he could get his 6 for 69 and his 2 touchdowns, you're taking away targets from Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle, and I don't think you want to do that.
Well, I don't think that's true. I don't want to buy that at all. I think
you don't agree.
No, not at all. I think that look at the game and how it proceeded. Jalen Waddle and Tyreek Hill were not unproductive in the game. I mean, that's probably understating it. The guys, what did Hill have over 170 yards? And Waddle had like 130. They are. How much more production do you need to give those top 2 receivers? I mean, what kind of territory of unprecedented territory in the NFL are we looking to get into at some point? That it's like, we're picking on Mike Gesicki's 69 yards and saying, oh, that should have gone. No, I think that he is a functioning member of the offense. I think he's a functioning member of the offense when it's good. Mike Gesicki is. I think that there was something to be said for a player like Tanner Connor, who is I'm not shoveling dirt on his grave over 2 drops when he's essentially a new to the sport convert who is an undrafted rookie this year, converting to tight end for the first time. He was a wide receiver in college, and he was not necessarily a football guy in college either. I'm not gonna throw dirt on his grave for 2 drops. It's a long season, and we'll see what happens with him. But with respect to Mike Gesicki, he's a functioning member of the offense. I think there's something to be said for maybe we don't have to get a guy that's as expensive as he is in order to do what Mike Gesicki is doing, which is really to get a lot of attention in the passing game. He's part of the reason why you're seeing so many balls being able to be funneled to those wide receivers. Whereas, defenses are smart. They start to shut guys down. Or they can usually take away at least one guy, defense can. And I think that we're gonna find out for the rest of the year whether he can function in this offense. But it's Hunter Long, really. That's just at this point, what are you doing? Because you're not blocking. He's worse than Gesicki as a blocker, which is staggering to say. And he's clearly not catching the ball either, and being a valid, part of the passing game. I don't know about remaking the room, just because Durham Smythe was also a functioning member of the offense when it was good, when it was productive. We're talking about stretches of the offense. We're talking about the Baltimore game, that fourth quarter. We're talking stretches where we had functioning offense, good points per drive, so on and so forth. Durham Smythe and Mike Gesicki were functioning members of that offense. They were playing their roles fairly well, and it was working. So I want to give more time for that. I don't want to just close the book prematurely on all this stuff. Now, Mike Gesicki is going to get expensive though, and that's the ultimate issue. So next year, he comes off his tag. Well, Dalton Schultz comes off his tag too, and it's okay, well maybe we revisit that. For as another tight end. I don't tend to think it's going to be about a rookie. I think that this is a complicated position in this offense, particularly with respect to the run game and all the adjustments that they have to make, on the fly to get a valid run game going. I just don't see them. Yes, they'll have a project player, a young player that they're hoping to mold into something, but the guys that are going to be on the field and actually producing and being a part of the offense, I think it's going to be a free agent signing with experience in the system. I think that's what we're gonna see. Tanner Connor, we'll see. We've got 11 more games to go, and Tanner Connor might get some more reps, and he might even catch one next time. So we're gonna see if he can, for example, because he is very fast and he is very, very athletic. He's as athletic and as fast as Mike Gesicki, and so he can potentially garner some of the same type of attention that Gesicki does. So we're going to see if that's a valid option heading into next year, to be sort of a role player in this offense. Durham Smythe can clearly block for the offense, but he's also still learning it. So we'll see. I think it's the offensive line. You said it. You went back to it. Your best offensive lineman is a guy who can't stay on the field. It's Ron Armstead. Your second best offensive lineman is a guy who is playing center for the first time and has some bad snaps, and he was kind of called out this week a little bit as far as the calls that he's making at the line, and how they're kind of waiting for him to get fully up to speed with this offense, because it is very hard. There's something about this with Austin Jackson at right tackle, and Lord knows we can't trust him as far as we throw. There's something about the entire unit that still feels wrong-headed to me, and the way that it's playing out, the way that we're seeing it, it's not taking shape, and so it's going to. I hate to we say this every year, the offensive line needs to be fixed, but it ain't fixed yet. And that's the biggest issue. That is the biggest issue heading into next year. I don't think it's the tight end position at all. So we'll see.
All right. Yeah. I don't know. If I had to bet, and I don't know if you agree with me or not, and I guess we could close here. I think Durham Smythe makes it out of this group for next year, and I really do think they'll have two new guys alongside Durham Smythe. Do you disagree with me, Chris? And then I'll ask Simon.
No, I think you're probably right. I wouldn't be surprised if like I said, it's a long season. We'll see what happens for the rest of the way out with Tanner Connor, for example. but because he could be like the fourth guy for all we know next year. I think you're right, though. I think we're probably looking at a move on from Mike Gesicki. I'm not going to say it's a certainty. I think a lot of people headed into this year with an absolute certainty that he just was not going to be brought back, and then he was. Mm-hmm. And so I think that I'm not gonna close the door, because he may very well be brought back next year. But yeah, I think you're trending in the right direction when you say Gesicki probably replaced, and then some other new name aside from Durham Smythe.
All right, Simon, I already know you kind of agree, but some of our listeners and some of our members on OnlyFans, they were asking about this guy. He was a hot topic all week. What if I told you, well, we have the 49ers first round pick. Let's say that they're a little bit better, because I feel a little bit queasy about taking a tight end in the top 10 unless it's like, a Kyle Pitts type, a unicorn. But let's say with the 22nd pick in the first round, the Miami Dolphins select Michael Mayer out of Notre Dame. Your thoughts on him and as a prospect and as a fit for this offense?
I mean, he's a good player. I wouldn't feel comfortable necessarily taking a tight end at that point, when there's just, way bigger issues. To me, you've got some really good offensive linemen. I watched Alabama, Tennessee, like we all did on Saturday night, and I watched Darnell Wright, who's the right tackle at Tennessee, 58, absolutely locked down. Will Anderson, who's going to be a top 3 pick. And you look at a guy like that. I mean, we talked about a guy this time last year. I was talking about Abraham Lucas, who's been an absolute. I mean, he's playing at an all-pro level. I mean, you look at someone like Brandon Thorne, who's one of the best breaker downers, whatever, somebody who breaks down offensive line play. And he's like, I'm astonished at how good this kid is playing at right tackle. So you look at a guy like Darnell Wright, and then you just think, to me, that's where the Dolphins need to invest. They need to invest in offensive linemen. Teron Armstead is, we talked about this at the start of the season. It was great to get him. It is great to have him on the team. He's an amazing player, but you cannot rely on him to stay healthy. He injured his toe in week 1. He's already missed pretty much 2 games. He's playing on a bum toe. You could easily expect him to go on injured reserve for 4 weeks. You could easily expect him to go on injured reserve and miss the rest of the season. Just as likely. So, I think it's a huge issue, and whether that's a Peter Skoronski at Northwestern or Jalen Duncan at Maryland or whoever, I think the Dolphins need to invest in offensive linemen. You've got to fix that position, and they've summarily have failed to do so for years and years and years. And until they do it, I just don't think they're going to be a legitimate contender.
All right, but you do agree Michael Mayer's a first round pick?
I think he's been a bit hit and miss in run blocking this season. I like him.
Let me ask you a better question. Because I love this guy coming out. Better prospect right now, Michael Mayer or TJ Hockenson?
Hockenson.
Okay.
Definitely.
All right. So not the same class then. So he's probably not a first round pick.
I think he's a Todd Heap type.
Okay.
I think he's a really good player. I definitely think he's a really good player. I wonder how fast he is. You look at the Bowers kid at Georgia. That's a proper tight end. Do you know what I mean? I think Miles is a good player. I think he's a good player. I think he's a really solid player. I just think he needs to. I've just been a bit disappointed with him this season. I think maybe I just don't think his blocking's been quite as good as. But he's definitely a first round. He's definitely a first round player.
Okay, and on the way out, he's better than Cole Kmet.
He's different to Cole Kmet.
Okay. All right. Yeah. Well, we'll save this for the off season because, but for whatever reason, he was a hot topic on Saturday. I don't know. He must have had a big game. I didn't see Notre Dame play on Saturday, but everybody was talking about him like, oh, we gotta, this guy's our first round pick no matter what. And I'm like, okay, I'll bring him up on the podcast, and I did. So you got a primer on Michael Mayer, people. All right. That's it. The next time we'll talk to you, it'll be Dolphins, Steelers. Certain coach coming back, by the way. And, of course, the Use is back at quarterback. Tua Tagovailoa makes his return. Sunday Night Football for the first time in, what feels decades. But till then.
Thanks for listening to 3 Yards Per Carry. You can subscribe via iTunes, on Podbean, or your usual podcast provider.